Hello, I'd like to introduce Alex Radford of My Lawyer in Spain, who's going to explain how you can get residence in Spain before the deadline of 31st of December this year.
Thank you, Nigel, for that introduction, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today, and thank you for Nigel and Susie for organising it from Expat Network. It's a pleasure to be here, and just to let you know, who am I? So my name is Alex Radford. I'm an English solicitor and a Spanish lawyer. My parents moved to Spain in 1981 when Spain wasn't a member of the EU. I grew up in Spain, went to an English school to start off with, then a Spanish school, and I returned to the UK in 92 to start studying law. Qualified as a lawyer started practicing as a lawyer in 99, and then I returned to Spain in 2003. And now I'm a partner with My Lawyer in Spain. We have offices across Spain in Mallorca, Tenerife, Costa Blanca, La Zenia, Valencia, Madrid, Bilbao, and Almeria and Marbella. And we act for clients buying, selling, inheriting property all over Spain, and more recently, applying for residency. So there's a lot of British people at the moment who have been their holiday plans and their buying plans have been put on hold because of COVID. And there's a lot of pent-up interest and demand at the moment for British people to come out to Spain and to buy a property or sign a rental contract and then apply for residency. And really, the pent-up interest and demand is mainly because at the end of this year, we come to the end of the transition period, and the rules and regulations that are in place now to apply for and obtain Spanish residency are less rigorous than ones that we expect next year. So first of all, why do you need Spanish residency? Well, basically, anybody, any European citizen or a citizen of another country intending to move to Spain to spend more than 3 months in Spain has an obligation to apply for residency. And they don't have to apply for it after 3 months, but they have to apply for it within the first 3 months. So if you intend to spend more than 3 months in Spain, you have an obligation to register as a resident. Now, it's very important to bear in mind that the calendar year in Spain runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So if you spend more than 6 months in Spain, then you are in a calendar year, then you are considered a Spanish tax resident. And if you spend between 3 and 6 months in Spain, you are not considered a tax resident. What does that mean? Tax resident means you will pay tax in Spain on worldwide assets and income. And if you're moving to Spain lock, stock and barrel, then that's normally the case, what people want to do. If you're not intending to become a tax resident in Spain, then it's important to stay under the 6 months, 183 days threshold. Okay, so how long does the residency last? Well, basically, once you apply for and obtain the residency, it lasts for 5 years. Okay, and after 5 years, you can renew it. That will be then renewed, and after 10 years, you can actually apply for Spanish nationality. So you can change your nationality over from British nationality or any other nationality to a Spanish nationality once you've been here for 10 years. As far as the residency is concerned, if you are out of the country consecutively for 6 months, then you will actually lose that residency. So in effect, what I'd recommend that you do there is that you break that 6 months up, so you're not out of the country for a full 6 months. A lot of people are asking us at the moment whether or not there's enough time to come to Spain and buy a property or rent a property and obtain their residency. And the good news is that yes, there is. Okay, so you can still come to Spain as and when flights allow and return flights, etc., because of the quarantine issues. But you can come to Spain. You can enter into a rental contract, buy a property, and then apply for residency. But the clock is ticking, and you've got until the 31st of December to apply. I would recommend that you start that process as quickly as possible. We've put in place a Spanish website called www.getspanishResidency.com. There's a lot of frequently answered questions on there, and the procedure for applying is set out online there. So I urge you to have a look at that. www.getspanishResidency.com. A lot of people ask us, what documentation will I need to apply? And basically, this kind of differs depending on the age of the applicant. If you're under the age of 65, then you will need to have private medical cover in place, or you can register as a self-employed person, or you can, if you're employed, then you'll receive a contract of employment and you've got money coming in. So in effect, the Spanish authorities want to see that you've got sufficient monies coming in to live on, and also that you'll have healthcare, private healthcare or state healthcare in place. So under the age of 65, you can obtain that healthcare by way of a private medical cover. Lots of people will be surprised. Lots of people we're talking to obtaining quotes from UK companies about health cover, when in effect they should actually apply for quotes from Spanish-based companies, because they tend to be much cheaper. So I'd recommend, if you are thinking about residency, again, have a look on our website. We've got some examples there of how much you'll pay for medical cover, and then there's insurance providers will be on this webinar later on today. You can contact them and apply for a quote. And I'd suggest, as I said, you apply for a quote from a Spanish-based agent, so they can talk to various brokers. So basically, that's the under 65s. Over 65, you can apply for Form S1 in the UK, and that will entitle you to health cover in Spain. So if you come to Spain this year and you've got Form S1, or you basically have private medical cover, you can apply for and obtain residency, and you'll have residency for the next 5 years until you renew it. Okay, that's not going to go away after the UK leaves the EU permanently at the end of this year. Okay, so that's very important to bear in mind. The other documentation that you'll need a rental contract with at least 12 months in there, or a proof of ownership of a property. So that if you bought a property, typically the Spanish authorities want to see a land search confirming that you own that property. So in effect, private medical care or Form S1 for the over 65s, rental contract, or a deed. If you're going to rent, then and you're intending to buy then a property, then I would suggest you put in place a rental contract with a six months review clause. So typically the authorities will want to see a 12-month contract, but if you are intending to buy, I have a clause in there that means that allows you to leave or end the rental contract after 6 months. So you've got those documents, and then you need proof of income. And proof of income varies on the region that you apply for, but typically what the Spanish authorities are wanting to see is monies coming in of about 850 euros per person, as well as up to 9,000 euros in a bank account. And again, regions to regions vary. So contact us if you're applying for residency, and depending where, those amounts may vary. But in effect, you've got to prove that you've got medical cover in place, either private or health cover provided by the state, Spanish state, property to live in, and then income. And basically then the process is we submit the application for you. We can submit that online so long as you're in Spain. And then when the authorities have approved your application, they will ask you to come along to the Foreigners Department, and you'll be granted with a new TIE card, which is basically a photographic card with your thumbprint on there, and that will basically provide you with residency for the next 5 years. So at some stage we will need you to come out to Spain. And also, as a result of the new changes to the residency process from the 6th of July, all applicants also have to register on the Padron, which is the census. So in effect, you would go along to your town hall with a copy of your deed to the property or a copy of the rental contract, and you would register on the census. And at the same time, you can sign up to vote in local or European elections. So a lot of people say to us, oh, you know, I'm a resident already, but not a pensioner, but I'm going to retire soon. And they ask whether or not they have to let the authorities know. And in effect, yes, you do. So we are acting for clients who are moving out to Spain. One of the partners or spouses may be over the age of 65, and the other one is younger. You can apply for Form S1, and the younger spouse who may not have retired can be a beneficiary of Form S1. And when they reach that golden age of retirement, then they can obviously let the Spanish authorities know that they've retired as well, and they could apply for Form S1 in their own name. Form S1 can be applied for from a Social Security office in Newcastle, so you'd have to make a call to them and ask them to provide that to you. So a lot of people also talk to us. They don't quite understand the difference between residency, citizenship, and nationality. And basically, just to clarify, nationality is you're a British passport holder or whatever nationality passport you hold. But residency and citizenship are different. Residency is in fact where you live. And you're not going to become a citizen of Spain. You will become a resident of Spain. So that's the main difference here. A resident, you're living in Spain, either for up to 6 months as a non-tax resident or more than 6 months for a tax resident, and you've become a resident in Spain. But basically, you don't change your nationality by applying for and obtaining residency. You would only change your nationality if you then chose to take Spanish a passport out. As you're aware, and I mentioned, the UK leaves the EU at the end of the year. The transition period comes to an end, and you know, people are concerned about what will happen to the residency. Well, in effect, if you apply for it and obtain it this year, then nothing will happen. You will continue to have residency for the next 5 years when you apply and when you reapply. And it's important that once you've got the residency, that, for example, if you are under the age of 65, that you keep your medical insurance in place, and obviously you keep your address in place, because the Spanish authorities, when you come to renew it, will want to see the documentation proving that you've lived in Spain for the last 5 years. Excuse me. What happens if there isn't an agreement between the UK and the EU at the end of this year? Well, in effect, if you've applied for and obtained residency, then it does make a difference, because the withdrawal agreement covered residency rights. So if you've applied for and obtained residency this year, those rights will continue. If you are moving to Spain and selling your main residence in the UK, then I would recommend that you sell your UK residence first and then buy a property here and apply for residency. Because once you become a Spanish tax resident, then you become a Spanish tax resident, you pay tax in Spain on worldwide assets and income. So let's just say you moved to Spain in 2021, and in that year, say in February, you sold your UK property, moved to Spain, registered, bought a property, or you'd already purchased a property and used that new property as to apply for your residency, then the Spanish tax authorities could consider that you became a resident in 2021, you'd sold a property in that year, and they could tax you on that. So when you arrive in Spain, and the timing of when you come to Spain is quite important, because if you spend more than 6 months in Spain, you're a Spanish tax resident. So I would recommend that if you're selling a property this year, then you only apply for residency from now onwards, which means you'd spend less than 6 months in Spain, so you won't be considered a Spanish tax resident. But it just plain, you know, it's very important to be careful of those timescales. So to avoid, if possible, you becoming a tax resident in Spain, selling your UK property, and being subject to capital gains tax in Spain on the sale of that property, which could be your main residence. Okay, so just bear that in mind. And also, if you've got other properties that you move to Spain, you buy a property in Spain, you sell your main house in the UK, but you've either got other properties and you sell those, then the Spanish authorities will want you to submit a tax return on the sale of those and pay tax in Spain on that as well. If you spend less than 6 months in Spain in a year, then you do not have to worry about becoming a Spanish tax resident. Okay, so in effect, if you buy a property, the year after you've purchased the property, you would pay what's known as the non-resident income tax. And that is a percentage of the cadastral value, which is a value the Spanish authorities use to calculate the value of the property. You'd pay that tax the year after the purchase of your property. But that is the only tax that you pay to the Spanish estate because you spend less than 6 months here, but you own a Spanish property. So we've got a resident, tax resident for more than 6 months, full tax resident paying tax in Spain on worldwide assets income, and then we've got someone who's here for less than 6 months. They are a non-Spanish tax resident, but both of those applicants or people moving to Spain or owning a property in Spain but not living here for more than 6 months are considered residents. Okay, so anyone living in Spain for more than 3 months is considered a resident. So the year after you've purchased a property and you've become a tax resident, so you're spending more than 6 months in Spain, if you've got assets of the value of over the value of 50,000 euros, then you have to declare those in March, and that's known as Modelo 720. So in effect, if one person keeps assets in their home country of more than 50,000 euros, they have to register with the Spanish authorities. As I mentioned earlier, the Spanish tax year runs from January to December. The UK tax year, as you're aware, goes from the 6th of April to the 5th of April. So if you move to Spain next year, let's just say you move to Spain in March, in effect, what you'd be able to do is apply for a tax rebate for any tax you paid in the UK from January to April, and then you'd pay, if you became a Spanish tax resident because you spent more than 6 months in Spain, then the year after next year, so 2022, you'd put in a tax return for 2021 in Spain, and you'd pay tax in Spain on the whole year. But in the meantime, you could have applied for a tax rebate from the UK authorities. Some of our clients are under the age of 65. They're retiring to Spain. However, they might have an ongoing medical condition, and they can't obtain private medical cover. So what can they do there? In effect, they could register if they could work, they could register to be self-employed, and that would provide them with health cover and protection. Or if they've got a spouse, they could become a beneficiary of their policy. And after 12 months of being registered on the census, then people can actually apply to what's known as the Convenio Especial, and that would provide you with health cover. And typically, a monthly payment for people under the age of 65 to the Convenio Especial is 60 euros and 157 for those over that age, and that's per month. Okay. So I think that's basically the residency process is quite straightforward. You've got to get the documentation together. You've got to have bank statements proving you've got means to live in Spain. You've got healthcare in place, whether it's private or the Form S1, and you've got to have an address via a 12-month rental contract or a property deed. Once those documents are collated, we then submit those to the authorities. They will approve those, and then we'll be asking you to come out to Spain for a meeting at the foreigner's office to collect your card. That is the process. If you've got any other questions, I'm happy to answer them now along with Nigel, or feel free to kind of go on our website, www.getspanishResidency.com, and book an appointment to speak to us, or send us an email. We'll be happy to answer any inquiries you've got. Nigel, okay. Over to you.
Many thanks, Alex. One question we've had from other people is about what happens in 2021. Just to clarify, people will, there's the Schengen rules, but presumably there is also a number of visa options that people will be able to follow. So could you just very briefly outline that as we're sort of running out of time?
So certainly. So basically, 2021. If you don't manage to get residency this year, but you come next year, then we expect at the moment, if you haven't got residency, you'll be able to spend 90 days in a 180-day period in Spain. And you'll have to apply for some form of visa to come into Spain. Obviously, if you've got a residency from this year, you won't have to do that. And the financial requirements, Nigel, haven't been set yet. But basically, governments work on the basis, on a reciprocal basis. So if the UK says let European nationals in on a contract with about, say, the amount that's being talked about at the moment is around the £25,000 mark. What we could see is that basically a main applicant coming to Spain next year to apply for residency will have to prove that they've got 25,000 euros in the bank account, and then basically each beneficiary about 6,000 euros. So those are the figures we've got at the moment for non-European. So we're acting for clients from the Middle East and also from America and Australia who are applying for residency here in South Africa, and they basically need 25,000 euros as the